Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so happy to have Lydia Chen Shah here today presenting on Invest in You like you invest in your students. Just a few quick announcements, a little bit of housekeeping. So as you are all familiar with, if you have joined us yesterday, in Excel events, there is a lobby where you can view any conference-wide announcements that student members are making. You can also access the full agenda there and check out our sponsors, Facebook and Acadium, as well as visit the exhibitor booth where we have course consultants ready and able to help you find the perfect courseware fit for your classroom. If you are joining us on social media, that we've got a lot of chats happening on Twitter and Facebook, please use our hashtag ProfCon20 to be included in that chat, and we'll also be doing some social giveaways there. For today's session, we will also do a giveaway for the most engaged participant. So that is being engaged in the chat, asking questions, making comments, things like that. And we will be giving away a $5 Amazon gift card. And with the chat feature as well, we will have a Q&A session right after Lydia's presentation. So if you have any questions for a member of the student team or for Lydia, please send those in the chat and we will answer those at the end of the session. So moving in to introduce Lydia. Lydia is a marketing professor at California State Polytechnic University, Pomona, Cal Poly for short, where she teaches multiple courses including digital marketing, consumer behavior, social innovation, entrepreneurship, and international marketing. She is a part of Western Region Campus Compact's inaugural 2019-2020 Engaged Scholars Initiative, a cohort of community engagement professionals advancing models of institutional change and collaborative action addressing societal issues. Lydia is a leader in strategy, integrated marketing, and brand and product management. Lydia is a fantastic presenter, and she actually spoke with us at ProfCon 2019 in West Yellowstone last year. So we are so happy to have her here. And Lydia, I will pass it on to you now.
Thanks so much, Haley. I'm really grateful to be back and talk about investing in ourselves. Last year at ProfCon 19, I had a lot of one-on-one conversations with people, and I wanted to share this with you in terms of how this session came about. As we listened to all the great speakers and all our amazing colleagues who shared their best practices and lessons learned, some of the, offstage conversations centered a lot around the obstacles that people face in order to implement new programs, create new courses, get buy-in and support from all different angles. And we as instructors, we do such a great job, right, of coaching and mentoring our students, guiding them. I think that there's a real opportunity for us to make sure that we are doing the same kinds of activities and exercises that we are coaching our students to do. So let me show you this first picture here. And it took me a while to find the right picture of what I wanted to express or what I heard other people express, right? Had we been in Vegas and I thought maybe we should do like somebody walking on a tightrope. But I found this one thinking, how many times have you felt like, somebody else always has this upper heavy hand on you, that somebody else is always dictating what hoops you have to jump through? And yeah, we all have to jump through some hoops, but we also have choices about which hoops we're going to jump through, right? If I had a penny for every time somebody told me, you're too this, you're too that, you're not enough, you're not enough this, or you're not enough that, or we don't have funding for that. We've never done that. Why would we try this now? And my first thought would be, well, why not? But, rather than letting somebody else or this elephant in the room constantly, guide you and how you make your choices and how you chart a path, you have a lot of opportunity. You have a lot of say, right? You can determine those places that you're going to, the valleys and the mountains, which ones you're going to go through. As educators, we know that education it's cognitive, it's applied, and it's pro-social. And so with this in mind, the three sections that you're going to see in this presentation, one, it's about social value, defining your social value. Two is social capital, right? How you can create social capital. And thirdly, about social impact, making that impact. Okay. So as we seek again to change our students' paths, how about our own? Marto, I feel you too. I feel that all the time. For this section on defining social value, it's just that, right? We have to level set in terms of context and terminology, but this is really about defining your social value. Okay. Professor Arthur Brooks at Harvard teaches a class on happiness. And it's focused on the drivers or the foundation, the building blocks of happiness tied to a sense of purpose. And he recently shared an article, which is linked to in this presentation, where he presents these three equations of happiness, right? And equation one, right, your subjective well-being, it's how you answer the question, how are you doing these days? Right. And what feeds into this are your genes, meaning what's your baseline? What do you return to when something sways your mood or your emotions, your circumstances, the good and the bad. And lastly, in equation one, your habits. So we don't control our genes. We might be able to influence some of our circumstances, but again, that's not something typically in our control. But our habits, that's an area where we do yield not just influence, but where we make those decisions. And that leads me into equation two, where habits equal faith, family and friends, and work. And when we talk about faith, this is no one particular faith. This could be, a secular philosophy in terms of structure that helps you think about or answer some of, the deeper questions tied to purpose, right? And how you serve others. Your family and friends, these are your relationships, your strong, loving, trustworthy, right, relationships. And lastly here, your work. Now, this is not work in, I think, the traditional sense that most people might think of, like your job. Your work in terms of your human endeavor to be productive. And the professor who wrote this article, he talks about, again, that it's tied to purpose, right? So maybe it's not a specific job title that you have, but there is still productive human effort here. He also talks about that work being tied to how we earn success. And that word earn, most people, again, would probably lean towards, the thought of monetary compensation and monetary value. I would think that most of us here know that money doesn't always equal happiness or satisfaction, right? Leading into equation three. I can speak from personal experience. Having worked at a digital advertising agency for several years, where it was an amazing team and the role was amazing. Our clients were awesome. After I lose count, whether it was 6 or 7 years, and I was making six figures, I made my own conscious decision to leave the agency. I have not shared that story on a broad level or with a broad audience like I'm doing here at Stukin. But most people, when they hear something like that, they're kind of taken aback. They're like, wow, you walked away, like you weren't laid off. They didn't fire you. Like you made this decision to leave. And it was because my happiness equation was changing. It was changing, right? What led me to satisfaction? So that's where we have equation three, satisfaction being what you have over what you want. Now, about these three equations, right? They can, I don't think that they're necessarily mutually exclusive. I think that they can apply to different parts of your life and different points in your life. But you want to have a pulse on, what are the drivers to your happiness, those foundational building blocks. All right, now we've got privilege and positioning. So in looking at what's critical or essential, and this is about you're defining your social value, right? So what's necessary, whether that's right now, short term, or long term? What's next level? Like, what's your extra that you bring or have that maybe others don't, right? And this material, this content, was prepared after mid-March. And there were a lot of conversations, right, about that critical, essential, like, okay, but how, you want to do this, and that's not what our focus is right now, what we have to do here. And being able to have that pulse on what's critical and essential versus what's next level and what's extra that you bring, and it can be amazing. That helps you make sure that you're not tone deaf to what's going on around you. Okay. Then the good old SWOT and perceptual map tools, right? We probably tell students to do this. We talk about in personal branding. I linked here to another ProfCon speaker from last year, Scott Davis, where he's got some an article and some videos about, what's your own, brand and where you play into, like, if it's courage and high courage versus low courage on a perceptual map. It doesn't have to be what I've put here as examples, like industry relationships and industry knowledge, right? But knowing where you are today, and also in terms of where you want to be, right? All of these help you figure out, okay, what's that social value that I can contribute, or that I want to contribute. And again, tied back to the happiness equation. What roles define and guide you? This last piece within defining social value, right? On the left-hand side, you see here, these are my roles right now. And they were probably different a year ago, and they'll probably be a little bit different in 12 months. And I have to, for myself, have very good clarity so that when there are opportunities, right, whether I'm pursuing those opportunities or people are coming to me with opportunities, I know that here are the things that are going to guide me, right? For mom and spouse or partner, I'm unapologetically a mother. And I say this because I think there's still, despite some advancements, I think there's still a lot of pressure for parents, right? Working parents, like, what do you, if you're going to be part of this team, or if you're going to, pull your weight, what do you have to give up in terms of family time or family commitments in order to satisfy some other part of your life, right? So for me, mom and spouse, that's number one. Now, the other ones, I'm not sure if it's exactly in that order in terms of stack ranking, but when again, those opportunities are presented, or these things that I want to pursue, I use that to be a primary factor in, is this something that I'm going to go after, right? That bonus where I put wild card, this is part of my brand. People know that I will deliver. They know that I will always do my best, and they always know that I might say something really unexpected and I might go off script, right? And that's also that's part of me, because as I see how things evolve, as I see things changing, I might just take that opportunity to say, hey, hold on. Like, what are we doing here? And so some other people view that as a wild card. And as you know, if you play cards, like, a wild card can shake things up and take some unexpected turns. Okay. I put this placeholder here on the right-hand side to say, you try it, right? Because this is honest reflection. Right? You put it all out there. You look at those happiness equations, you do the SWOT, you do the perceptual maps. Maybe you don't do them all at once, make it into bite-sized chunks, right? You look at what are the roles that define and guide you, right? And now, when you say yes or no, right? When you have to make decisions, when you have an opportunity to say, is this, you make the opportunity actually to say to yourself, is this activity, is this project, is this going to, contribute, like, from me getting from point A to point B, okay? So had we met in person, I would have given time, right, for you to pick at least one of these, and really put the answer out there, for yourself, right? What's going to define and guide you here? I hear you, Jason. Yep, sometimes you have to go off script to keep things interesting. All right, so let's move on to social capital. Now, the definitions out there of social capital can certainly be murky. I scoured a few different ones, and even myself, like if I had to come up with one on my own, I think I'd have a little trouble with it. But this one from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, it's an international organization that works towards better policies for better lives, I think really captured what I wanted to share with you, is that you have these links, right, where you have shared values and understanding that allow you to trust and work together. Okay, trust and work together. And there's three main categories that OECD presents in terms of social capital. You have bonds, bridges, and linkages, right? So the bonds are usually people, friends, even colleagues, right, that are closest to you. We identify them as people like us, right? It could be my best friend since 7th grade. It can be one of my very close work colleagues who also has mixed ethnicity kids. That's a unique kind of, interaction that we have. It could be all the folks here at ProfCon who share a very strong common teaching ethos, right? Then you have the bridges. This is a little bit more distant, extended, and they stretch beyond the shared identity. So I think of these folks for me, when I'm walking the halls of the College of Business Administration in Cal Poly Pomona, some of these, the folks that fall into the bridges are, the people that teach in the college, but not in my department. Right. And I'm sure you can start to think of people who are bridges for you. And these might be people who teach in finance and in law, in human resources. And so they're people and links that at some point I may need to work with them. And we're gonna have to trust each other. We're gonna do this, we're gonna have to do this well, whatever it is that we're supposed to do together, right? And we don't have the exact same experience or identity being in different departments, but there are bridges there. And then lastly here, linkages, further up or lower down the social ladder. So I think about my immediate boss, right? My department chair, the dean of the College of Business. I don't really think of my admin support as lower down the ladder. I think of her as just an amazing team player because she supports everybody in our crazy department. But that might be, some of the constructs or the parameters in terms of how you look at linkages. And these, again, are all people that you would have to, you'd have to work together with in order to have this advancement forward of whatever it is that you are looking to pursue, that you're trying to get buy-in for, that you're trying to get the support or funding for. Okay. So having identified these links, these networks, right? This is marketing. You got to speak their love language. Find out what's important to these links, these points in the network, right? And what are their pain points? The bullet points that you see here, these are examples of where I look at the university strategic plan, strategic initiatives. I'll look at, what is the College of Business need to achieve, trying to achieve, and so forth. So at the university level, right, we've got this big strategic plan with several initiatives, and if there's, again, let's say it's a conference that I want to attend. Let's say it's a new program that I'd like to test. Let's say I've got a new course I want to try. I'm very well known for wanting to try new courses in our department. I'll look to see, where does it fit in the university strategic plan, and why? Because my department chair, she has to, every year write an annual report that then goes to the College of Business and feeds into the College of Business's annual report, and so forth, and it feeds, further along, right? So knowing, the target audience, the network, the links, right? What are their goals and pain points, and finding out, what's really important to them. In marketing and sales, we talk about doing your homework and answering the with them, the what's in it for me. That's the same concept here. It's exactly the same. So finding out their love language, learning their goals, their pain points. You also have to find out how, you can dance together. And I use this analogy because, again, you go back to that idea that you have to trust and work together. And what you're seeing here, and I don't know if I have any salespeople in this session, but these are, I would say, classic steps in sales, also in marketing, implementation. And so you have to ask those questions, right? You have to nurture and find out, the things that are important to them, like how are those things progressing, even if those things are not a direct, tie-in to what you're trying to pursue. It shows that you care about the relationship, right? And when you do have solutions or collaborations that can help, right, and you offer those up, right, asking, would this be helpful? What's the best way under test solutions, right? And I know sometimes it can be scary to get feedback, but feedback is feedback, and it's helpful, right, to find out what's really exciting, right? What is daunting? What was painful? What was too much work? Right? Not sure if we should continue it, or should we do this again? And what you're leading up to here in learning how to dance with each other, it's really like, are we in agreement of not only the approach, but what we expect together as outcomes? Okay, what are the expected results? You can use this process, by the way, not just with like your internal stakeholders or folks you're trying to get buy-in with, but like, your industry partners, your guest speakers. When I do client-based projects, which is all the time, it's very collaborative in how the whole project brief is developed. And there's a lot of conversation going on to figure out how is this going to be mutually beneficial, and not just, like the lip service of like, let's make a win-win situation. No, seriously, like how are we going to make this work so that, all this time, effort, and energy that we're putting into it is, again, we're both getting the expected results or outcomes. All right. So in doing all this, right, and all these steps, they might not be linear, right? You might do a little here, a little there, right? You're building a community. And I know I've heard and seen the concept of building a community in some of the different sessions we've already had and yesterday. And I wanted to share how, like, you want to make sure you don't have an echo chamber. You want diverse perspectives. You want different people, different roles within your community, right? That's my boss over here on the left side, my department chair, Dr. Juanita Rojas, where she challenges me a lot every time I want to, create a new course or start a new program. She asks 50 questions and more, which I love and I appreciate, and I need that because she's been around so much longer than I have. She's giving me that insight, and she's my sounding board to say, have you thought about this? At the end of the day, she fully supports, the different endeavors that I've put out there, because there's, she's seeing that I've given so much thought, and I've talked to the different people and the different stakeholders of what needs to be considered, right? She's also fully appreciative of, like, sometimes we need to test. We have to try this and see how it goes, right? I've got over here June Myers, Dr. June Myers on the right-hand side top, where she was somebody at Cal Poly Pomona who invited me to be a guest speaker before I started teaching there. And now she's one of my colleagues, right? And she gives me that I think that academic lens that I don't really have. I come from industry. And so there is a big challenge for me often to see things through the more traditional academic lens of how things are done or how they are assessed, right? And I need that diverse perspective, because, you know, as I'm swimming upstream or I'm trying to get that buy-in and support, these are real things that are important to other people and you know, the roles that they have, right? So I won't go through every person on here and every center here, but the concept here is that I've got different folks in different places who are just amazing, and they're honest with me. They show insight, initiative, and they're interconnected, right? These are all people within the university. There's certainly people outside of the university that are part of the community. But this again becomes this amazing group of shared values and trust to say, hey, Lydia, this is where we think it can work. Or, hey, Lydia, I think you need to work on this part. And also at the same time, hey, Lydia, like this sounds great. Like let's do this. Let's make this happen. All right, let's keep going here and move over to making social impact, right? So as you have clarity in terms of social value, you're doing these, parallel tracks to create social capital. I think you all have, I'm sure, made a lot of impact with your students and with the different organizations that you work with, you work for, your departments. But sometimes my observations is that things stay in a bubble, right? And we're not always great at marketing ourselves and being collaborative, like open to other individuals, right? Coming into our space. And maybe this is not the ProfCon community, but I have seen it, right? And not specific to academia. It happens in any organization where people get very protective of what they're doing. So one, you got to make sure that, you realize that we're not an island. We really have to bring others along and bring them into the fold. And at the same time, right, you are sharing what you're doing. And so that's where I pulled this, this old advertising phrase of eat your own dog food, right? We'll preach all these wonderful things, right? How we have to showcase this and how we have to showcase that, and how marketers have to listen to the customer and get feedback. But are we doing that really as a collective? So that, we're working in a community or working with, the links that we trust. Okay. So one thing that you can do is just start with simple invitationals. Invite people to your classroom, your coworkers. And you might think, why would I do that? And why would they want to be there? There's a couple of reasons. There are clearly things that this whole ProfCon group does very well in their classrooms, your projects, your presentations. So one is, right, to share what you're doing, share your success. Another one could be to get feedback. And I've had colleagues ask if I can, they can come to my classroom just to see delivery and how a classroom is facilitated with my approach. And I'm okay with that. Sure, maybe it puts me in a little bit of a vulnerable position, but that's totally okay. If they can offer feedback of how I can improve, that's something that I didn't have before, right? And so here's some other opportunities besides invitationals to your classroom, right? So if you've got a project that you're working on, if you think that somebody else has, some capability that you might not have, you're lacking, ask if this is something that they want to work on. And yes, I know that there's got to be some carrot for them, right? Something in their happiness equation in terms of why they would want to accept that invitational. But this is, again, it's just a small step, but it can have big impact when you start inviting, okay? I have seen lots of great student success stories in the presentations from yesterday. And I pulled out a few too, right? It's very powerful when others can speak about you and about your success. You want to make sure you share that, right? So we're really good at, capturing these student success outcomes. Maybe you have an inbox folder labeled nice emails that, you go and read when you need some brightening up on any particular day. But you want to make sure that these student success outcomes, right? Think about, again, how they align back to the goals and the pain points, right? You might want to strategically think about which ones you share to whom, like who do you hit forward to on this, because you know that they have a very a very concerted stake within, service learning, or within creating the digital marketing track for your university, right? Or somebody who's working very closely with career services. So there's actually a lot of content that you have that you probably haven't looked at how you can use this. Yes, Jillian, your brag and motivation file. Love it. Beyond the student success outcomes, you need to show the stakeholder outcomes. Okay. And what I have here, these are just some screen captures of content from partners, whether they were client-based projects, service learning. And so actually in the middle here, it was a LinkedIn post from the County of Riverside. One of the projects in this past academic year for a digital marketing course was the County of Riverside Human Resources Department. And you're thinking like, wow, maybe this is like not the most sexy and interesting thing for students, but it was very, very interesting. And they gained a lot out of this. The County of Riverside Human Resources really was looking at, how do we engage digitally? We don't know if we're doing the right things. We have a lot of parameters, constraints, because we are a public entity. And this is human resources. We want to hire different generational cohorts. We want to expand that diversity. And there's certain ones that we're not sure we know how to appeal to. And so that's where we put a project together for reviewing the digital marketing efforts and making these recommendations. And County of Riverside posted this on LinkedIn. And, they were very proud of this collaboration. I was very proud of it, and I wanted to make sure that others, within, internally, externally, knew about it as well, right? Because for your university, for your college, we talk so much about like having those industry relationships, the future of work, getting students engaged, something like this, right? This type of content, it speaks volumes. Now, I've put out a lot of information here, and when you are creating that social capital and you're making all the tremendous impact that you are, it's important to manage expectations for yourself and for the others involved in your networks or in your links, right? One of the tools that I use is it's an end of semester report or an annual wrap up. And I do this for different initiatives. It's a chance for you to showcase a highlight reel, to put in specific data that is, that interests the stakeholders, and also next steps. I'll plop in photos and other other things too. And I do this consistently. I do this regularly. And so now the people who have, I've been nurturing those relationships with, who I've been talking to, who are my sounding board, the interconnected folks, right? They start to expect this. And this serves several different purposes. It keeps me accountable. Number one, there's a lot of people, who are, trusting me, and they are investing in me, right? And I want to make sure that I'm able to share back with them those expected outcomes. What did we talk about? Or if something went awry, like how would we do it differently, right? This tool also, it becomes a great forward. What does that mean? Because it's consistent in practice, and it has these, highlights, the data, the next steps. Now when those stakeholders or leadership has to make decisions, or they want to, reinforce you and further support you, they can hit forward very easily, right? They can pull the pieces they need from your annual report and use that to keep supporting you, right? To continue this process. I started this a few years ago, and it as an effort to showcase my service learning or engaged learning course that was sponsored or supported by the Center for Community Engagement. And so that's how it started, with just one course. And now, as I've waded into a lot of different areas, I do this for those different initiatives. Okay. As you build these things into your practice, as you build consistency, a ripple effect will start to happen. Yes, you'll still have things that you want to pursue, where you'll have to, light a fire and get people excited with you, but opportunities will start coming to you. And this last academic year turned out to be completely unexpected, I suppose, in the most wonderful way, even with our quick transition to remote teaching and remote learning. I started the year just moseying along, teaching the classes that I thought I was going to regularly teach, and ended up, because I spoke about my lessons learned in engaged learning, as part of, I ended up in this cohort for engaged scholars through the Campus Compact organization. I was approached by our Center of Entrepreneurship and Innovation to lead our Bronco Startup Challenge. It's essentially our Shark Tank, real competition for students, where they can earn prizes, seed money, and professional services, right, to help launch new ventures. Our urban, College of Agriculture held an urban and community ag forum, where marketing, sometimes it's kind of seen as a dirty word over there, but they invited me to come speak about marketing and sustainability because of, what they were hearing or the different projects that I was working on. So this again, none of it was expected, frankly. And it made me take a good look at how I make choices, right? And so when you have that ripple effect, and it's not just when you have that ripple effect, right? You got to make good choices, right? So I provide some scripting here on the right side. And again, those of you who are in sales, you can probably relate to this, where, you have the concept on one side, the left-hand side here, but the scripting, sometimes we don't always know the words. Like, how do we actually say what we want to say, or want to express, right? So when you're presented with an opportunity, right, take the time to think about it. Go back to those roles that define you, your happiness equation, and ask the by when. I always ask this: by when do you need to know? And ask the hard questions. What, if I participate in this, or you want me to participate in this, what do you actually expect, right? It's okay to negotiate, and I think you should, right? The Bronco Startup Challenge role was a really tough one for me because I was excited about it. I've worked in entrepreneurial environments before, but I knew it was going to be very taxing. And so one of my key questions was, who else, is involved, and what will they do, right? And don't be afraid to ask for additional compensation too. If there's extra work involved, this is, totally out of the norm. In fulfilling the brand promise, remember, they came to you, or you were selected for what you do, for what you can do, right? So when the script says here, you can count on me to do my best, right? That's your best within what your brand promise is, right? If for whatever reason you have to decline, or this doesn't align with your A to B or your happiness equation, your roles that define you, stay connected and offer alternatives, right? What other resources might support the initiative? And that's where I end most of my emails in these kinds of conversations with, please let me know how I might help and support, or how I might be a resource, right? And I could definitely see how people feel. Is that just like an open invitation for people to bombard you with work? No, because you still you still get to make the choice, right? You still get to make the choice, but you're still offering to stay connected, right? And to nurture that relationship. Huh? Okay. So lastly here, just continue expanding your community. You want to invite others, but you also want to participate, right? I think I've said ask questions a million times in this session. We really have to find out what's important to others, and how can things work, right? Demonstrate, contribute, cultivate, and then for yourself, put a stake in the ground. Target, we have this great Lyle Center of Regenerative Studies on our campus, and we have a really big campus. And I keep telling myself, I want to go check out this center. And I didn't do it all last academic year. So I told myself, I need to make sure I go check out the center when it's safe to do so, when we're safe to do that in person. And start some conversations there. But really, again, this is about you. And so when you put those stakes in the ground, you put goals in place, then you're able to now say, okay, I'm really looking at how I'm investing in myself. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I know we're right at time, and so Haley can let me know if we can take any questions. And I'm also happy to connect with anyone later on during the conference or via email.
Yes, thank you so much, Lydia. A virtual round of applause from myself and everyone that has the session. That was fantastic. I think, at least for myself, being very still new to my career and having only graduated college 4 years ago, I think learning how to build my voice and my confidence in being an advocate for myself is something I'm still learning how to do. So this presentation is just amazing, so perfect. I see we have a couple questions in the chat. So coming in from Julianne Fritz, any ideas on how to capture something like a highlight reel with online classes?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, one of the things that I look at in terms of a highlight reel, you can take a broad sweep at this, because it could be, let's say you do client-based projects, right? So it could be examples of creative assets that the students develop. If you have them do any type of reflection assignments or questions, it could be what I showed in the student success outcomes. It could be those types of quotes or things that you have in your motivation file. For a 100% online class, there are actually some students who, by the way, like to be on camera. I had a lot of students who kept their cameras off when we switched over for various reasons, which I completely respect. But there's students who love to get on camera and they love to talk. So just as we would do in a marketing practice, there are some that you might have a really strong relationship with that would even go on record to say, some great things about what you're doing in your course. Some of the reflection questions too that I ask are what have you picked up in this course, or what's been different in this course that you haven't experienced in any others, or what did you expect coming in and what did you get throughout the semester. So there's a lot that helps them work through what's happening and how they've progressed that can be used in your highlight reel. And Julianne, I'd be happy to talk more on this too.
Great. Another question that came in from Jason Deutsch. Did you come up with the happiness equation before or after Professor Scott Galloway came up with the algebra of happiness?
Oh, hey, Jason. These are not my happiness equations. There's a link in the presentation to an article from Arthur Brooks at Harvard University, and he teaches a course on happiness. And so these are the equations that he presents or proposes. And I can, again, totally relate to all three equations at different points in different parts of my life. And Haley, you said 4 years out of college. I'm way past 4 years out of college, and I have to rethink and relook at this stuff all the time.
Great. I don't think we have any more questions that I've seen come in. Thank you again, Lydia, so much. For everyone that's attended, we have, as you can see on the screen, Lydia's contact information. If you'd like to get in touch with her, follow her online. She makes great content. As for our most engaged winner of this session, it is Julianne Fritz. So I have your name written down, and I will send you that Amazon gift card. Next up, from 10 to 11, we do have a networking session. You can find the details in the lobby within Excel events. And imagine speed dating, but better. And then right after that, from 11 to 12, we'll have a lunch and learn session with our graphic designer, Sydney Wright. And this will be a very great presentation. She will be teaching on how to create visually appealing lecture slides for clear communication. And she is so amazing. Lydia, thank you so much. I see we had one more question come in from David, if you want to quickly answer that. So he said, any advice for applying these ideas at a school where the COB already has more funding, higher salaries, etc.?
And he said it's hard to find collaborators. So this one might take a little bit more time in terms of breaking down the walls. But those invitationals, I think that the first step of those invitationals, or vice versa, asking other instructors from the other colleges, right? Like for anybody who's doing anything interesting, hey, can I come check out your class? The conversation that started with the College of Agriculture, we have some folks doing some amazing work in urban agriculture, urban farming, and there is another professor who teaches this course on farmers markets, urban farmers markets. And every Saturday in the semester, when we could, he would take his students to a different farmers market or a different urban farm. And I'm like, how cool is that? Right? Like totally out of the classroom, learn by doing. And so I reached out to Dr. Aaron Fox, and I was like, is there any way I can go on one of these field trips? I love what you're doing. And I would love to learn more. And that started a conversation. And we also had a mutual community partner where one of my courses, the students were doing a marketing evaluation for an urban farmer. And so those kind of things, sometimes you just step up and ask questions, ask if you can learn, if you can sit in. And I think that's one way where you can start to break down those walls where people see the College of Business is over here in this corner and they've already got all of this, right? I think there's a lot of I've had some very candid conversations, people asking me about like, it's hard to find like real collaborators. Everybody has an agenda, or they have, a certain motive. So it's a little bit like dating, where you have to talk to a lot of people to find, right, those that align with what you're also trying to achieve, tied to your sense of purpose. But you take those little steps in asking and inviting, to get you closer to the goal. I hope that helps.
Fantastic. That was great. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. We are so happy to have you guys, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you, everyone.
See ya.